In the quiet dawn of 1848, nestled amidst the majestic Sierra Nevada mountains, a humble cottage, known as Sutter's Mill, stood along the tranquil banks of the American River. On a fateful winter's day, James W. Marshall, a carpenter and sawmill operator, was working at the mill when he spotted something glittering in the river. Curious, he reached into the water and unearthed something extraordinary. Glimmering flakes of gold. The California gold rush had begun, a wild chase for riches that brought thousands of people from all over the world to California, seeking fortunes buried deep within California's rugged terrain. It is a saga that forever changed the course of history. At the start of the 19th century, America was a country divided. The East was teeming with settlers, while the West remained an untamed frontier. As the Mexican-American War concluded, California became part of the United States. However, since gaining independence from Spain in 1820, Mexico had done little to develop or populate California. Back then, the area was home to only about 6,500 Californios, 700 Americans, and 150,000 Native Americans. That all was about to change. The first gold strike happened on January 24, 1848, in the wooded foothills of the Sierra Nevada mountains, about 40 miles east of modern-day Sacramento. On that chilly morning, James W. Marshall was leading a team of local workers to build a sawmill for John A. Sutter, a German-born pioneer and founder of the Nueva Helvetia colony, now known as Sacramento. Sutter had hired Marshall to construct a water-powered sawmill in Coloma on the American River. While digging a channel near Sutter's mill, Marshall and his crew discovered several gold nuggets, each about the size of a pea. After running some tests, they confirmed that the shiny flakes were in fact pure gold. Though Sutter and Marshall wanted to keep this discovery a secret, it didn't take long for rumors to spread to nearby San Francisco. At first, most people dismissed the rumors. Since the early days of European colonization in the Americas, tales of vast gold treasures had circulated, but none had proven true. To the skeptical residents of San Francisco, the talk of gold in the Sierra Nevada foothills no more credible than stories of El Dorado. But any skepticism would soon vanish, thanks to the promotional genius of one man, Sam Brannan, a merchant and land speculator who owned a general store near Sutter's Fort. When Brannan heard about the gold discovery at Sutter's Mill, he was torn. Part of him wanted to keep quiet and go prospecting for gold himself, but he realized he could make more money by attracting crowds of would-be miners to his store. Brannan also owned a newspaper and immediately started printing stories about the gold discovery. In May 1848, Brannan bought enough gold dust to fill a jar and made the 90-mile journey to San Francisco. There, he bought every shovel, pickaxe, and mining tool he could find. Then, like a man possessed, he ran up and down the streets of San Francisco, waving his jar of gold dust and shouting about the discovery. People eager to strike it rich rushed to buy mining tools, only to find that Brannan had bought them all the day before. He then sold the equipment at several times the original price. Sam Brannan became the first Californian millionaire. To say San Francisco exploded with excitement over the gold discovery would be an understatement. Many San Franciscans immediately abandoned their jobs and headed to the gold fields, leaving the city nearly empty overnight. As word spread down the coast, waves of gold seekers poured in from other California towns like Monterey and Los Angeles. Farmers left their fields, and sailors arriving at San Francisco Bay abandoned their ships to try their luck. One ship captain even put his crew in chains to prevent them from fleeing. It wasn't just common laborers who caught gold fever. Doctors and lawyers also left their professions to go prospecting, believing gold mining was a shortcut to wealth. With a shovel, tin pan, and some hard work, it seemed like anyone could make a fortune in just a few days. By the summer of 1848, news of the gold discovery began spreading beyond California. Brannan's stories of easy riches reached China, Australia, Hawaii, and South America. Word eventually made its way to the east coast of the United States, though many were initially skeptical, thinking the news was exaggerated. Everything changed on December 8, 1848, when President James K. Polk officially announced in a congressional address that the news was true. Gold had indeed been found in California. Gripped with gold fever, thousands of Eastern Americans, mostly men, set out for the Sierra Nevada mountains, eager to find their fortunes. These gold seekers were called 49ers, a name that would later be adopted by a certain football team in California. There were three main routes to California. The first involved sailing around South America, turning at Cape Horn, and then heading up the Pacific to San Francisco, a journey that typically took 4 to 6 months. The second route was to take a steamship to the Isthmus of Panama, cross the land on foot, and then catch another steamship to San Francisco. The third and most popular way was to travel overland from the Missouri River, the starting point for the overland trail to the Sacramento Valley. Some traveled by horse, some by ox wagon, but many walked the entire distance. In the mid-1800s, it was easier to reach London or Paris from Washington, D.C. than it was to get to California. Traveling to the west was difficult and dangerous, but the promise of gold made it worth the risk for many. The gold rush sparked one of the largest migrations in world history. Over 300,000 people from around the globe flocked to California in search of gold, leading to a massive population boom. Boom towns sprang up overnight, and within a little over a year, California's population multiplied nearly tenfold. San Francisco became the main entry point for prospectors arriving by sea, its population exploding from 600 in 1848 to between 25,000 and 30,000 just 2 years later. Once a sleepy village, San Francisco transformed into a bustling city filled with miners, merchants, and opportunists. Life in these boom towns was chaotic and vibrant, with stores, saloons, and brothels catering to the needs of the gold seekers. With California beyond federal reach, law enforcement, sanitation, and civil services were almost non-existent. Everyone carried a gun, and robberies, holdups, and street fights were common. After a long day in the mines, liquor flowed freely. Frequent brawls over gambling debts, drunken insults, or gold claims often ended in violence with a revolver or knife. If someone struck gold, their findings could easily be stolen. With sheriffs and constables rarely around, vigilance groups took the law into their own hands, delivering swift and often brutal justice to those they deemed guilty, though the results were often questionable. The gold rush attracted a diverse array of people, including immigrants from China, Latin America, Africa, and Europe. However, as the supply of gold began to dwindle, oppression of minorities became a significant issue. Among all the foreigners, the Chinese formed the largest group, crossing the Pacific to escape the political and economic turmoil of the Qing government and the destruction from the Taiping Rebellion. Initially welcomed by fellow miners, the Chinese soon faced discrimination due to their traditions, customs, and appearance. White store owners often exploited Chinese customers, selling them subpar goods at inflated prices. Worse still, Chinese miners were frequently accused of stealing gold, which white miners felt was rightfully theirs. Many Chinese miners were forced into increasingly marginal areas, with little ability to protect their claims. In land disputes, authorities typically sided with white miners. Foreigners from other parts of the world faced the same harsh realities as the Chinese. The mines were a tough environment, especially for Latin American miners from Peru, Chile, and even Mexico, who suddenly found themselves treated as foreigners in a land that was once theirs. In 1850, California's government even imposed a $20 per month tax on immigrants. This anti-immigrant sentiment grew so intense that many people from France, Mexico, and Chile gave up and returned to their home countries. The worst suffering was endured by California's Native American population. The sudden influx of people brought diseases that Native Americans were not equipped to handle. The expansion of farms forced many Native Americans from their homes. Mining operations polluted the land with gravel, silt, and toxic chemicals, destroying habitats and killing fish. Before the gold rush, about 150,000 Native Americans lived in California. By 1873, due to genocides, diseases, and environmental destruction, only around 30,000 remained. Once folks arrived in California, they were eager to find as much gold as quickly as possible. The most common method was placer mining, where miners combed stream beds using simple tools. By filling a pan with dirt and water from a stream, they could filter out the gold from the unwanted debris. This process was slow, primitive, and backbreaking. Prospectors typically spent 10 to 14 hours a day waist-deep in freezing glacial water, with the sun beating down on their heads, leaving them boiling hot from the waist up and freezing from the waist down. New tools like rockers and long toms were invented to process larger amounts of dirt more efficiently. Finding gold was often a matter of luck, with some claims yielding a small fortune, while others turned up little to nothing. By around 1850, most of the surface gold had dried up, but the demand for profit continued to rise. This led to the invention of hydraulic mining in 1853. Prospectors built dams and used high-pressure water jets to clear away entire mountainsides, extracting gold from the residue. These water jets were powerful enough to kill a man from 200 feet away. While effective, hydraulic mining was environmentally devastating and was eventually banned by federal law in 1884. Massive amounts of mercury were used to extract gold, leading to severe contamination. The waters around the Sierra Nevada mountains are still polluted with mercury 170 years later and could remain contaminated for the next 10,000 years. For the prospectors who headed west, mining for gold was grueling and often unrewarding work. It resembled a lottery where very few struck it rich, leaving many empty-handed. However, there was another path to wealth: mining the miners. Entrepreneurs made fortunes, selling prospecting equipment and providing much-needed, albeit highly priced, hot meals after a day in the cold streams sifting through rocks. Miners gladly paid premium prices, sometimes 4 or even 10 times the normal rate, for everyday services and essentials. Some individuals rose to prominence during this era. In 1853, German immigrant Levi Strauss expanded his family's New York dry goods business to San Francisco. 2 decades later, he revolutionized workwear by introducing riveted denim pants, initially known as waist overalls, which became immensely popular among miners needing durable clothing. Folger's Coffee began when James Folger, originally from Nantucket, Massachusetts, came west to mine gold, but found a lucrative market for pre-ground coffee instead. John M. Studebaker started by building and selling wheelbarrows to miners, later transitioning with his brothers into automobile manufacturing in the following century. Wells Fargo, initially an express shipping company and bank, was established during the gold rush to transport gold bullion, mail, and other valuables between the east and west coasts. By the late 1850s, the California gold rush had lost its initial fervor. The richest gold deposits in California were depleted, prompting many miners to seek opportunities elsewhere. When the Comstock lode was discovered in Nevada in 1859, it sparked a new rush, drawing miners away from California. Some headed south to Arizona, while others ventured north into Idaho and Montana. By 1863, a year before Montana became a territory, thousands of gold seekers had arrived, lured by the promise of striking it rich. It was the discovery of gold that truly drove the population growth of Montana. From 1848 to 1855, approximately $2 billion worth of precious metal was extracted from the area. While some individuals amassed fortunes, the majority did not. Many businesses that emerged during this period thrived, and America's economy flourished thanks to the sudden influx of gold and capital. The impact of the California gold rush was so profound that economies around the world experienced stimulation. Moreover, the gold rush helped shape the American identity, embedding the concept of the American dream into the nation's collective consciousness. It redefined success. Hard work and perseverance were seen as pathways to prosperity. The rush taught Americans the value of taking risks, embracing the possibility of failure in pursuit of extraordinary reward.